better source of nitrogen, Pivot Bio. We will learn about the science behind this unparalleled company and show how it benefits farmers. Hi, and welcome to Rural America Live. I'm Tammy Arnder. Glad you're with us. We have Pivot Bio CEO and founder Karsten Temme in studio with us. And Karsten has grown what began 15 years ago as a two-person science team to an enterprise that employs more than 250 people. Thank you so much, Karsten, for being here. So excited to have you. I'm so fascinated with what you've done with this company and what you're doing for agriculture and our farmers. So let's start with exactly what is Pivot Bio and what challenges are you solving for our farmers?
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Pivot Bio, we are a nitrogen innovator. We want to come up with a better way to get nitrogen into our crops to really fuel the productivity and the yields that make our farming operations work.
Most of our farmers know those cycles of what the carbon, what the nitrogen, all those go into growing great crops. But for those that may not be familiar with its importance, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that. I teach my kids when we're gardening, you need three things to grow a crop. You need sun, you need water, and you need nitrogen. Because those nutrients coming from nitrogen are the building blocks of DNA and proteins and ultimately the grain we harvest. And today, we get those nitrogen nutrients to our crops through fertilizer. And there's something better. There's a better way to do it, and that's what we're trying to do at Pivot Bio.
You obviously found the better way to do it. So let's learn a little bit more about you. Tell us about yourself.
Well, where do we start? And what's interesting to anybody else? I grew up in Wyoming, and I am wired as an engineer. My dad was a civil engineer, and some of my earliest memories were getting to play with those first trucks as a kid in the soil samples at his company's lab. And my first job was shoveling rocks into different sizes sieves so we could classify the different types of soils that his company had projects on. When I went to school in Iowa, I trained to be a biomedical engineer. So building things like heart valves and hearing aids, hip implants. And for me, I realized that entrepreneurship is where my passion lies. Being able to take new discoveries and get them out into the world so that they benefit all of us. And graduate school was my opportunity to put that passion to the test. And what's grown out of that is the company we get to talk about today.
And you obviously dug a little deeper into microbes that we're hearing a lot about in agriculture these days. Tell us about that.
That's right. So, growing up, I knew soil as dirt, as the combination of sand, silt, and clay, and the chemistry in that dirt. And when I got to school, I started learning about the living components of soil, that there are microbes which really provide the magic that makes our soil the productive source of nutrients for our crops that it is. And so in graduate school, I got a chance to understand how microbes have the ability to breathe in the air around us and turn nitrogen in our atmosphere into ammonia for our crops to use. And it's just fascinating that here's a source of nitrogen that we can use to power agriculture, and we just need to figure out how to tap into it.
I love the term magic because it is almost magic underground, isn't it? And when you get that right cocktail, so to speak, into that root system, it really is magic and it helps our crops. Talk about the discovery. I mean, what was, I guess, maybe a light bulb moment, that made Pivot Bio kind of pivot into its own form of a business?
Well, my co-founders are my fellow graduate student, Alvin Tamsier, and our graduate school professor, Chris Voigt. The project I worked on in graduate school was trying to understand if we know nitrogen fixation well enough to be able to turn that into a crop trait. So could we put all of the genetics that make this possible in microbes into a plant? We realized that that was over-engineering the solution of the problem. And so for Alvin and I, our aha moment was walk into a coffee shop one day. We just stopped and we looked down at the soil and said, there are microbes naturally living in the roots of crops. The crop has a microbiome, just like you or me. And the job of that microbiome is to make nitrogen for the plant. So let's figure out how to unlock that.
And so you did it. That's what you took science, which intimidates most of us, but you just kind of boiled it down to what was necessary for that plant to grow and then be able to expand on it. So I love that, and I love the aha moment. Now we can take a look at the overview of Pivot Bio and how you're working to change modern agriculture.
Fertilizer has really been the lifeblood to feed nutrients to the crops we grow. And that's a big problem that impacts global sustainability and the profitability of our farms.
I mean, the chemical nitrogen fixation process is pulling nitrogen from the air, fixing it under high pressure and high temperature, but it's had a negative environmental impact. 30 to 50% of all the nitrogen that's applied is actually converted into biomass. The rest is released into the environment, either through nitrates that are leaching into the water or into nitrous oxide that's being released into the atmosphere.
If you were to go back 40 years, the biggest conversations within the academic sphere was how can we get plants to fix their own nitrogen? Because if we could, it would have such a big environmental impact.
And there's been a lot of attempts to do this. Various academic labs claiming they had something that was close, and maybe no one's been able to make it work.
What we've built here at Pivot Bio will solve this problem once and for all.
We've created a groundbreaking technology, and we've transformed that into a product that really could change modern agriculture.
We isolate microbes that naturally associate with the roots of the crop that we're interested in. Then we fine-tune those microbes and turn on their ability to actually give nitrogen to the crop.
That could be one of the most transformational technologies in modern agriculture.
If we can replace synthetic fertilizer with a way that is just harnessing the natural ability for soil to do what it was meant to do, that would be revolutionary.
By eliminating this dependency on synthetic fertilizers, we are enabling the world to use less energy and rely on microbes as a solution that can fix this without the intensive energy need that the traditional process would require.
We want to make that land more productive and make that acre produce in a more reliable way year after year.
The nice thing about the Pivot microbes, it's much more accessible to the crop. It's being produced on a consistent basis, on a day-by-day basis.
All of that nitrogen they produce is consumed by the crop. We help every farmer be a better steward of the land in the process.
The huge impacts they could have on making our waterways cleaner, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. These are things that really benefit all of us.
This is going to help us grow more food, grow it more sustainably, and help us have an ecosystem that can survive for the next century and beyond.
I feel like every time I watch that video, I learned something. And I was not a science girl growing up, but this all is so fascinating to me. Talk about the early days of Pivot Bio and maybe some of the challenges you did face to get where you are today.
Everything I think that the team has accomplished is because there's been an opportunity to have somebody around us help open a door and to solve a problem that we faced. And that's really all science or engineering is taking a problem that thwarts all of us and trying to come up with a good way to solve it. And so for us, it's gone from how do you take an idea that's a napkin sketch and turn that into a proof of concept in a test tube, then get that in a greenhouse and into the hands of some of the most early adopting farmers that took us under their wing and gave us a shot. To the point now where we're trying to serve on a regular basis growers that are producing crops on millions of acres.
And you're right, those early adopting farmers, those that trusted you because they knew that you knew what you were talking about, you knew what you were doing, and that great team was behind you. I'm thinking that your company, what started with just you and your, what did you say, your college? Your graduate school.
That's right, college professor and fellow scientist in the lab.
Wow, so we're talking about just a couple of people. Where are you now? How have you grown?
Well, we've grown. We're about 250 in number now, and we work with hundreds and hundreds of independent sales reps to help sell our product and support our customers. So for us, there's kind of been one truth through it all, and that's that growers are our heroes. We take our inspiration from the challenge of managing the acre, and we'll take all the feedback we can get to learn how to do things better.
That is a key component. People who are still willing to listen, because you've come this far. You're obviously a large company now with a lot of success, but always learning from the farmers who are out in the field and willing to listen to them. I do think that is huge, and I admire you for doing that. Pivot Bio's microbes, they go in a little differently than what farmers are used to with their inputs. So exactly what does a producer get when they get your product?
Well, so the way you might manage nitrogen fertilizer today is you have a few different times of the year you might apply it. In the fall, in the spring, maybe at planting, or even in season. And there's a bunch of different forms of nitrogen fertilizer out there. So you multiply those together, that's a lot of things that you have to manage in your nitrogen planning and budget. We want to simplify all that. What if you add nitrogen to your field simply at the time you plant seeds? Same pass. And then the microbes from Pivot grow with the roots throughout the growing season, and each day they're spoon feeding the plant its nitrogen. They don't make that ammonia until the plant needs it. And that's ultimately a more efficient way to get that nitrogen in the crop. And it means it's a lot less headache. It gives you the peace of mind that put it in at the time of planting, less work, always consistent and dependable.
And even if there was a rain immediately afterwards, it's already in the ground, it's protected almost, right?
Exactly. Instead of banking nitrogen in the soil and letting it get exposed to the elements or washed away from the field, the microbes latch onto the roots. They kind of fit the roots like a glove. That's naturally what they do in the microbiome. And so the plant, it feeds sugar to the microbe, and the microbe uses that to fix nitrogen and give it back to the plant.
Boy, you have just boiled it down where we can all understand it. I love that. And for a better explanation on the relationship between plants and nitrogen, we have a video that will help explain this further and be a little more specific about what Pivot Bio is doing differently.
Nitrogen is one of the most important nutrients in agriculture. Even though it makes up 78% of our atmosphere, nitrogen must go through several transformations to be used by plants. Nitrogen in the atmosphere is inert and is in the molecular form of dinitrogen, or N2. Plants cannot biologically fix their own nitrogen, so they rely on microbes in the soil to do it for them. These microbes feed off sugars created by roots, and in exchange, they fix dinitrogen into NH3, or ammonia. This is an energy-intensive process that only a select few microbes are capable of performing. This transformation from dinitrogen to ammonia is what Pivot Bio microbes complete. While fixing nitrogen, Pivot Bio microbes and the plants in your field quickly form a mutually beneficial relationship in the root zone, so your crop can optimize its uptake of nitrogen. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer is also created by converting dinitrogen into ammonia. However, this takes immense amounts of energy, mainly by burning fossil fuels. It's then shipped from factories, across the country, to the farm, where it must be applied to the field. All those steps account for 2% of all greenhouse gas emissions worldwide and come at a considerable cost to the grower. Pivot Bio microbes, on the other hand, rely on a biological process in the soil. No trains, trucks, or extra trips over the field. Another important part of the nitrogen cycle is the conversion of ammonia into nitrate, which is a multi-step process that occurs naturally in the soil. Just like ammonia, nitrate can also be absorbed by the crop, but it's very soluble in water, which can lead to runoff if it isn't quickly absorbed by the plant. In heavier soils, waterlogging and heat can lead to denitrification, where nitrate volatilizes into nitrous oxide, a potent greenhouse gas. In fact, nitrous oxide is 300 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer is susceptible to this nitrogen loss. It's common for less than 50% of the synthetic fertilizer applied to the field to be taken up by the crop. Pivot Bio's microbes supply nitrogen directly to the root zone, greatly reducing the chances the nitrogen is lost from the soil. The microbes deliver nitrogen to the plant, rain or shine, without an extra pass, or losing your nitrogen investment. They also produce and apply nitrogen to the plant continuously throughout the growing season, with peak nitrogen production coming when the crops need it the most. Pivot Bio is ready to be the foundation of your nitrogen plan, so you can continue to take care of the things that matter most to you, the land you work, and the people you do it for.
Karsten, you know what I'm picking up? Every time I heard in that video, and I've heard you mention, it takes care of it in one pass. But one pass means to me, you're not having to fuel a tractor up again. You're not having to spend another couple of days to cover your ground. That's got to be a savings in money.
It is. And think of just how unpredictable the weather is in a lot of the times of the year you want to make those passes. You might not be able to get into the field. And so if you can get the job done with just one pass, you might be able to spend that time somewhere else that's a lot more meaningful.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I really got out of that. And I do believe that our farmers and producers right now, because it is so expensive to get a crop in the ground, that's got to be hugely, hugely important. So, all right, we need to take a short break, but more on the science behind Pivot Bio when we come back. Welcome back to Rural America Live. I'm Tammy Arender. We are joined by Pivot Bio's CEO and founder, Karsten Temme. And we've been discussing the big idea that created Pivot Bio. And Karsten, your journey from where you started to basically where you are now. Let's go a little more into kind of the science of this, and not asking for proprietary stuff, but I still want to know more about how you actually got in and remodeled that microbe to get it to adhere and get that nitrogen in there the way you do?
Great questions, and we can talk about all the details, and hopefully it's really interesting to everybody listening today. The way I describe things to my kids, I've got a 7-year-old and a 4.5-year-old, and I tell them, a plant is like this big solar panel, and instead of making electricity, it makes sugar. Now, naturally, about 30 or 40% of the sugar it makes is actually exuded out of the roots to feed microbes in the soil, because crops have a microbiome just like you or me. And the main job of the microbiome is to fix nitrogen for that crop. The challenge is, because there's a lot of nitrate in our soils, the microbes want to conserve energy, and so they stop making all the key enzymes that allow it to do that job, and they're just sitting there in hibernation. And so what we do at Pivot is we really just try to rediscover those microbes and wake them up from hibernation. And in the process, make better products by optimizing 3 things. Can we make it so our products can get more of that sugar, their energy from the plant? Are they better at making those enzymes to produce nitrogen? And can they share it with the plant so that they're holding up their end of the bargain?
Right. You really want them to do what they were created to do.
That's right.
And quit taking a nap.
That's right.
That's right. Get to work, guys. That's what we want you to do. So you're giving them that little prod. Go a little further into that and talk about how Pivot Bio microbes produce the ammonia.
Well, so it's really just like you said. It's what those microbes are naturally wired to do. It's the symbiosis that has existed long before time. So we have this great invention, a vehicle to get nitrogen into our fields today, fertilizer. It's helped us grow the productivity of our entire agricultural system to where we are now, and it's the foundation for what can be even better, and that's to get back to what those microbes can do in the soil. And so when they make a very specific enzyme called nitrogenase, that enzyme can take nitrogen in the air around us, and the microbes breathe it in, and out the other end is ammonia, and that's what happens in a big fertilizer factory, except it's what microbes do on a daily basis with enzymes that they naturally make.
Right, so they're doing what they were born to do, so to speak. Let's see exactly how it works. We have a short animation that explains that whole Pivot Bio process.
Pivot Bio has introduced a new microbial product called Pivot Bio Proven that captures nitrogen from the air, converts it to a form corn can use, and then applies this nutrient directly to the corn plant daily. This new product consists of nitrogen-producing microbes that are applied during planting. Once the seeds and microbes are together in the ground, the roots have immediate access to the Pivot Bio Proven microbes. As the seed germinates and the roots reach out into the soil, the microbes adhere to the root structure, capture nitrogen gas from the air, convert it to ammonia, and feed it directly to the corn roots. Pivot Bio Proven microbes are not washed away by weather events, nor do they volatilize into the air, which makes them a reliable nitrogen alternative to maximize yield potential. leading to less dependence on synthetic nitrogen.
You know, if I had had videos like that when I was in 5th grade science, I might be a scientist today because I'm spellbound by that. I mean, I'm still so fascinated, and I didn't pay enough attention when I was in school, but that explained it so well. One of the things we do know about our soil, that there are trillions of microbes. So how are you making it work, and how does your technology, does it get to all of them?
Great question, and our job is to figure out how to map that complexity, how to understand it. What can we discover and learn about that living component of soil that we never really appreciated in the past? And what we've found is that living on and very near the roots of the plant are a set of species, some microbes that have this wonderful capability that's just there in hibernation. And so we've been able to set out on a course across the last decade to rediscover those microbes. And some of that involves being able to go out and dig up pails of soil and grow little seedlings in that soil, extract the microbes out of the root systems of the plant, and use those as the foundation for designing great products for our growers to use.
Since I have you at my dinner table, so to speak, and I feel like that you're open to telling me how the process works. Let's talk about the manufacturing process and how you get it and sell it, produce it and sell it.
Totally. Well, maybe it's good to compare and contrast to what we're familiar with. Okay. So most folks, if you're using fertilizer, you're used to using big, bulky tons of material that have to get applied each year to the field. Now, what we want is to change that concept, that fertilizer, as an inefficient delivery vehicle, gets replaced by something that's like baker's yeast. It's like a handful of baker's yeast across all of your acres can produce that nitrogen on demand. And you eliminate the need for a big fertilizer factory. We replace that with a microbrewery. So we're brewing up our baker's yeast. We're sending you a package that today, our product, it comes in something that looks kind of like one of those to-go coffee containers. So you get the cardboard box with coffee. That's our microbes, and you pour that into the liquid tank on your planter. And then that handful of baker's yeast, those microbes are producing the nitrogen each day for the crop.
You have no idea how close to home you just hit for me, because I'm a baker and I realize the power of that yeast in my loaf of bread and things like that. So that was very easy to understand. You just touched on it a little bit, but let's go a little deeper into the actual process for the product and for the farmer.
So today, a lot of the decisions you have to make with fertility, you have to decide that time of the year, the form of nitrogen, and you're really against this race against the weather. How can you bank that nitrogen in the soil and try to make sure that the crop can reach it before the weather degrades it all? So our process, we package up those microbes into that to-go coffee container, and we ship it directly to the farm. And we schedule it to arrive when you're ready to plant. So you tell us the planting date, we'll work around the weather and make sure that it arrives right at your farm when you need to be planting. And then as you load up the planter, add our microbes to the liquid tank. When the furrow is opened up, the seed gets dropped in, a little shot of our microbes is added to that furrow.
So you can be that exact, and you don't mind waiting. If somebody's ordered your product, but they see they've got the next 7 days is going to be rain, not going to happen, you can hold on to that. You make the timing fit
exactly.
down.
Exactly. Remember, our passion, the philosophy that guides us is growers are our heroes. We're here to serve. And that means we need to be as responsive as we can to the changing conditions on the farm. And if that means your planting date is pushed back or accelerated because of the weather, we're going to be there to make sure you have our microbes on just the right day.
We see the big picture and the benefit of what this does. Let's talk specifics. Let's get down to that laser level of what those microbes are and the benefits of those microbes.
Well, at the first pass, these are microbes that are naturally part of the microbiome of the plant. They're part of that soil structure. And their job is to produce that nitrogen each day that the crop needs it. So If you think about crop's physiology, it's going through growth spurts, just like you or me. And in the middle of those vegetative states of growth for corn are when the biggest nitrogen need is, when that nitrogen need is. And so those microbes are producing that nitrogen on those days to the best of their ability. And then when the crop begins to die off, the microbes decline as well. They die off because their partner, their food source, is being harvested. And so it's a way for those microbes to be able to breathe in the nitrogen in the air, to be able to produce ammonia each day that the crop needs it, and to do it when it's going through its biggest growth spurts in the times when it needs nitrogen most.
Now, I know you've had farmers already using this, so what feedback are you getting? What's been the response?
Well, one of the challenges for us is we've sold our product for 3 years now. Each year, the demand has exceeded the ability for us to supply enough product. And we've been growing leaps and bounds. So we sold 4 times more product this year than we did last year. And it was even a bigger growth spurt the year before. So we're simply trying to do our best to be able to serve the growers we appreciate and to be able to scale our organization accordingly.
The good growing pains, but good growing pains.
That's right.
Right? You'd like to have that problem. And we can hear from some of those clients now as they explain why they chose Pivot Bio.
My name is Kevin Popple. We farm in southern Minnesota. Pivot Bio Proven is a product essentially able to make nitrogen for the plant. It's an innovation that I never thought I'd see. It's been awesome for our operation. On our farm, we're excited about using Pivot Bio for 3 main reasons. Number 1 is net margin, net profitability. If we can spend $1 and make $2, that's a win for us. And we've had an opportunity to test a lot of different products from many different companies. And this product is by far, over the past 5 years, been the largest net return on investment that we've seen. Number 2 is environmental stewardship. When you look at environmental stewardship, Pivot Bio Proven is really a slam dunk because we know that large rain events are not going to leach that nitrogen out into our water. There is great science behind this product. It's proven science. This isn't jazz hands and pixie dust. This is a product that we know that we're not leaching that nitrogen. It doesn't matter how much rain we get or what the temperature is to a degree, we know that we're going to get that nitrogen throughout the season. And that's something that we cannot say with any other product that we use currently on our farm today. And now I can say with confidence that Pivot Bio Proven is going to be a huge part of our environmental impact in a very positive way. And number 3 is ease of use. For me, it's as easy as putting this product in with our starter fertilizer that we're already using. So not only are we looking at a product that's easy to use, and we're looking at a product that's going to save us time, which essentially puts more money in our pocket.
Thank you, Kevin. Of course, Kevin, they're a corn grower and had a lot of great benefits there. What's the difference with the legumes?
Well, very similar. And so a lot of folks are familiar with the relationship between legumes and rhizobia that live in their root system. Now, that symbiosis is a little more advanced than for any cereal crop. If you pull a soybean out of the ground, you'll see nodules, and they're pink. And that's how you know that those microbes are fixing nitrogen for soybeans. So that relationship, it's almost the same thing we're talking about for cereal crops. But corn, wheat, rice, they don't make that little organ, the nodule that houses the microbes. And so the symbiosis is a little bit weaker. And it means when we fertilize fields, that nitrate, it's able to signal to those microbes to get lazy. They become couch potatoes, and that's when they go into hibernation. And so even though scientists and agronomists discovered microbes fixing nitrogen for legumes about 125 years ago, and we've been able to inoculate beans and other legumes since then, it's taken until now, until the science has allowed us to understand how something similar might be possible in cereals.
And love the fact that you continue to research that. You know, every year you get better and better in learning how can we make it better on this crop as we did on the corn crop. top of mind for everyone these days is overall soil health. Is that what we're talking about here with this product? Are you improving overall soil health?
Well, when we have an excess of inorganic nitrogen in the soil, it begins to have some detrimental effects on soil health. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that the nitrogen cycle is as healthy as it can be. And when we supply nitrogen to our crops through microbes, we can reach that full potential. So nitrogen, like we talked about earlier, it's a required building block to make crops productive. Sun, water, and nitrogen, those are the three essentials. And we want to make sure that all of that nitrogen is going directly into the crop. The microbes produce it on demand, put it directly in the crop, and we're not losing it to the environment. So we're not degrading soil structure or potentially leading to more runoff and erosion of our topsoils. There's a lot of benefits that come from being able to make sure all that nitrogen gets directly in the crop.
And we love hearing from those who have used this product, because you and I can talk about it all day long. You're the founder of the company. Of course, you're going to sing its praises. Let's hear from some more growers and get their perspective.
Pivot Bio, it's a game changer. It's an industry leader.
Fixing nitrogen from the air is the holy grail in agriculture, and that's where Pivot Bio is fitting in.
There's a lot of things that they're telling us that we need and are going to have to reduce our synthetic nitrogen. This biological avenue for our nitrogen source, could be the way of the future.
We haven't had a tool like that before. So it's just fantastic to be able to have that in our toolbox to help with our nitrogen management.
Managing nitrogen to me on our farm is very crucial. It all comes down to really ROI. We're trying to push our bushels to the extreme. There's very little room for error when it comes to nitrogen management.
We're trying to make sure we have enough nitrogen in the ground at the time when the plant needs it, and that we're not applying too much from an environmental standpoint, and we're not applying too little that we short ourselves and we're not getting the best yield potential out of our crop. That's where there's a really neat play with farmers. You get to marry both the economics as a farmer and the environmental side of things.
We're standing on ground that my great-grandparents farmed, so it's pretty important to me to take care of what we have here so that generations to come can continue to prosper from our soil.
You satisfy maybe an inherent, desire to look after your environment around you, and also you're bettering your operation and doing a better job. So there's a lot of things there that be proud of to hang your hat on.
My confidence in Pivot Bio as a company is very high, and it brings a level of excitement into the marketplace that we haven't had. It brings a new product into the nitrogen space that we haven't had.
I'm very big into the biological space. We work with tons of companies and great companies, but Pivot Bio is something that everybody sees kind of on the top of the hill.
It's one of the few products out there that even with Mother Nature, it's predictable. That's what farmers want. They need that certainty, and they get it with Pivot Bio.
I think about the fact you and that college lab and that partner just starting that science and just thinking that this was possible. When you hear those growers talk about, is it not only possible, but it's exceeding what maybe you even thought it could do. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel proud of what the team has been able to do. And like we've got our work cut out for us, because we are the nitrogen innovator. And remember, growers are our heroes. We want to be here to serve growers for generations, decades and decades. And in the same way we celebrate those whose farms are in the family for a century, I want to make sure that we're here as a century company, that Pivot is serving growers long after I'm gone, and long after the rest of the team has passed on. That's the challenge ahead of us today.
You could have chosen any career. With that science degree and what you were able to do, you could have been a doctor or anything. Why choose agriculture?
I'm a problem solver. Seeing the potential to go from the problem to the solution is what gives me passion, and this is one of the biggest problems there potentially is. It's reaching for the stars, the impossible, in some ways the holy grail of problems in agriculture, and I just feel fortunate that I get to be part of a team that's making progress on that front.
A team that will have a global impact.
That's right.
Because you're going to help feed and clothe the entire world. So yeah, that's got to be a great feeling. All right, we got to take a short break, and we will come right back with more Rural America Live and Pivot Bio. Stay with us. So good to have you with us here on Rural America Live. We're visiting with Pivot Bio. They have actually commercialized 3 products available since 2019. Karsten, let's talk about those products.
Well, in the fall of 2018, we announced our first product, Pivot Bio Proven, a product designed for corn growers to be able to supply about 25 pounds of nitrogen per acre to their corn crop. And since then, we've had the wonderful opportunity to launch a product called Pivot Bio Return for both wheat and sorghum. And just recently, we've announced our 4th commercial product.
Talk about that one.
Well, that one, it's also back in the corn world, Pivot Bio Proven 40. And so it's really a signal to what we want to achieve as a company, that we want to continually improve. We want to do better. And so we could move from supplying 25 pounds of nitrogen per acre to 40.
So that rule of more is better, it works in this instance too.
That's right. Every corn crop is going to need right around a pound of nitrogen per bushel produced. Now, the agronomist, the crop physiologist can help us hone in on the number, but a good approximation, about a pound of nitrogen per acre. So you think about what some of the average yields are out there, and you need more than 40 pounds per acre of nitrogen. So we have our work cut out for us and more products to keep improving.
The new product, Proven 40, what was the improvement? What's the biggest improvement over that original product?
Well, when our scientists are designing products, they're really trying to do 3 things. So we've talked a little bit about how our microbes live in the roots of the crop, and they're in a symbiotic relationship. They're part of the crop's microbiome. So the crop is supplying sugar to feed the microbes, part of the natural life cycle of the plant. The microbes are producing enzymes that take nitrogen gas out of the air and turn it into ammonia. And then they're sharing a portion of that ammonia they produce back with the plant. So 3 things that our scientists try to get better at in the way we design our products.
And what about the way a farmer gets it? I know you mentioned the little coffee analogy, coffee can analogy thing earlier, but let's talk about when a farmer makes that call and says, yeah, I want to use it. What's the next step? How's it getting to him?
So one of the things we were very diligent about when we thought about how to build the company was how can we get as close as we can to the growers we serve? Because that gives us the best ability to get feedback, to be held to account, to be able to learn. And so we've chosen to sell our products through an independent sales rep model. So something similar to the way you might see seed sold from some of the big seed companies. And we work with a lot of the reps throughout the United States to be able to sell our product. And then when it comes time to plant, we've got a team that's in charge of all kinds of logistical magic to make sure that those microbes arrive right at your farm gate in time for you to plant.
I was just thinking that a farmer in Georgia may have different needs than a farmer in Illinois.
That's right.
Do you have to take that into consideration, or is nitrogen and microbes, they're all under the ground doing the same thing?
Well, the microbes, their performance is determined by the crop. And that means that if our microbes get added at the time of planting, and as the root system of the crop forms, they form that symbiosis and live right on top of the roots, they do their job. So the crop supplies sugar, and the microbes supply nitrogen back to the crop. And that's totally different than nitrogen, because nitrogen management is entirely dependent on your weather, your soil structure, what happens with the hydrology, the water movement throughout the season. And so we really get to flip that on its head, and we get to focus in on how to make microbes and plant interact better.
Well, and so to my point, it's like it doesn't matter if you're in Georgia or Montana or Illinois or Iowa, because the science is going to work wherever it is, and Mother Nature is not going to be able to interfere with it, is what I'm hearing you say.
That's right. That's right. That's really the step forward we get to take when it comes to nitrogen. The delivery vehicle of fertilizer means you're really at risk depending on where you are. And now, because we're looking to microbes as the delivery vehicle, the source of your nitrogen, all of that goes away. It gets a lot more consistent and dependable.
We've been talking mostly about corn farmers and how it benefits them, but are you selling to all row crop farmers?
Well, our two products today, Pivot Bio Proven 40 and Pivot Bio Return, really can be used in a number of cereal grains that most folks might rotate into. So corn, wheat, sorghum, those are the three I mentioned, and there's a few others that are on our label for the Pivot Bio Return product. So anybody who wants to be able to work with us and figure out the best way to use our microbes in your system, just reach out and we'll help you out.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to give all that information, how they can get in touch with you, because I know people are going to want to do that. Pivot Bio already has been well received. I mean, we've heard from growers, we've heard the testimonials from people who have used it. But how long before you think, because you're the cutting edge of this, you know, you're the forward thinker in this technology era, you think this is going to pretty much become standard practice for other companies and farmers as well?
You know, I'd like to see two things going forward. I'd like to challenge my team, the growers we work with, that we can really make microbes and products from Pivot Bio the sole source of nitrogen a crop needs within the decade. And then I'd like to make sure that everybody holds the entire industry to account, that we're not measured in success in terms of how much nitrogen we apply to an acre, but how much nitrogen ends up in the crop.
Let's talk about how and when farmers can get Proven 40. Is it on the market right now?
It is not for sale at the exact moment.
Okay.
But our sales season will start soon. Okay. And so I'd like everybody to reach out to us. If you're not already in communication, it's a great chance to get connected. And then we'll be announcing the launch of our sales season very soon.
I feel like it's a movie trailer. You've built up the anticipation, and I can't wait till it comes out in theaters. So in our farming and agriculture theater, it is coming soon to a place near you. So I know a lot of folks are interested in it, and Pivot Bio, of course, they'll offer demos, because, you know, some people may be intimidated by this, because there is a lot of science involved. But I know you make it easy, and we want to see how folks can be involved and how folks can get involved and become a part of Proven and Pivot Bio. Let's take a look.
Join Pivot Bio on the Nitrogen's Turning Point Tour to see Pivot Bio Proven 40 in the field. Agronomy experts and commercial team leads will share how Pivot Bio is ready to be the foundation of your nitrogen program. Call 1-877-451-1977 to reserve your place at a location near you, or visit pivotbio.co/nitrogen tour.
All right, love being able to get farmers and Pivot Bio connected. So you were countrywide. You're
That's right.
all over the U.S. So if they want to find you, they can.
That's right.
Talk a little bit more about what they're going to learn when they do get face-to-face with a rep.
Well, I think one of the things is let's have a conversation around how you manage nitrogen today, and let's answer all the questions you might have about using microbes as a better source of nitrogen. Let's talk about the extensive field research we've done, both at Pivot, in the hands of customers, and together with academic research institutions, to be able to put our product through the paces, and what it means to evaluate nitrogen products based on how much nitrogen ends up in the crop, instead of how much gets left behind in the field.
Right, we don't want that. How can farmers learn more about the Pivot Bio's microbes? I mean, again, a lot of farmers do want to know the why.
That's right.
Not just make it help me, but I want to know why and how it helps.
Well, best place to start is always our website, because it's a spot that you can read any of the information we have. It also can link to a number of videos or our YouTube channel that can really go into a lot of that depth as well. And in addition, on social media, there's always somebody nearby who's probably testing our product or got some crop in the ground that you could go out and see things in action.
Love seeing it face to face, and that word of mouth can be the best advertising. If you're just getting home and just joining us here, we are visiting with Pivot Bio, and this is Karsten Temme, the CEO and founder of this amazing company. And I think to kind of recap what we've talked about so far, the ultimate goal of your company and these products is?
Let's come up with a better way to put nitrogen in our crops and ensure that we have the fuel needed to produce our bountiful yields every year.
And you've kind of tapped into that science, so to speak, haven't you?
That's right. Microbes, they're the living component of soil, and they've got this amazing capability that can completely change everything.
And the fact that Mother Nature can't interfere with that. And then that leads us probably to the biggest benefit that we really haven't talked a lot about today, the savings. Because when you use your products, or when a farmer uses your products, we are talking about a significant amount of savings, aren't we?
Well, exactly. And I think the way we want to make sure everybody looks at it is if you start shifting the place you spend your dollars on your nitrogen budget, and instead of putting it behind delivering nitrogen through fertilizer, we use microbes to deliver nitrogen, you have a lot of benefits, like fewer passes through the field. So that's less work, that's less fuel. You get the assurance that the microbes are working on a daily basis, and you're not losing up to 50% of your fertilizer to the environment. 100% of the nitrogen from Pivot is ending up in the crop. And so that's some simple math. Everything ends up better, a more dependable way to get nitrogen into the crop.
And it is simple math, and I know so many of our producers these days, feel so much stress in getting a crop in the field, and is it going to be able to return what they put into it, with everything being so volatile? Talk about a little more specifically how it truly is helping farmers, this product.
Well, so the core of the product, it's a premise that crops have a microbiome, just like you or me. And the crop supplies sugar to feed those microbes. The microbes are supposed to do something in return. The challenge is, although a lot of those microbes can produce nitrogen, fix nitrogen from the atmosphere into ammonia, they're lazy couch potatoes that don't do it because we over-fertilize fields, or because we have a lot of nitrate into the soil. And so what Pivot has done is rediscover those microbes and wake them back up, get them to do their job again and hold up their end of the bargain, so that when the crop gives sugars to the soil microbiome, the microbiome does something in return. And that's produce nitrogen and put it directly into the crop.
And that crop, the result, when you go to harvest, you'll be able to see it then.
That's right.
Well, and you can probably follow it along the way, too, if you did some comparisons. And I'm sure y'all probably have done that. Have you been able to compare field to field that had Pivot Bio and one that didn't?
Well, that's one of the things we enjoy doing best. How do we get out either with our customers or our research partners and walk the field? How can we learn together? So if we can take tissue samples, if we can look at both the mass of the plant, the density of the nitrogen inside of it, if we can actually measure how much nitrogen is in the crop at any moment in time, we know how effective our delivery vehicle for nitrogen is. We can show every day that being able to supply nitrogen through microbes is a lot more efficient than putting nitrogen in the crop through any other mechanism.
And before and after always speaks for itself. You can't argue with that, and you really can't argue with science. And you guys have done that. We have one last video to leave you with. Let's take a look.
7 in the morning with a chance of showers.
Farmers have always taken care of what they value. Through hard work and resilience, they cultivated bountiful land. As the country grew, great revelations led to a green revolution, one that helped feed the world. Then it happened. Fewer hands worked the land, while more lived off it. Yet farmers took on the challenge. They pivoted, improved, and fed a nation hungry for progress. As Americans dialed up, farmers dialed in. Precision on the farm led to yields once thought impossible. But when it came to nitrogen, it wasn't precise or predictable enough. Not for the farmer, the crop, nor the environment. Today, Pivot Bio provides a better way to deliver a more dependable and productive nitrogen in the field, while giving growers a new tool to take care of what matters most. Farmers deserve a nitrogen worthy of who they are and what their land can provide. And now there is one. It's time to turn to a better nitrogen.
How I wish my father was still alive and farming. He was a great farmer as it was. And of course, back in that time, technology was little to nothing, and he still did a good job. So I can't imagine what he could have done today with products like yours. And we've talked a lot about that process, and you've been great at explaining it, but I'm one of those that I didn't get into science. And so I love seeing the visual and kind of explaining. So do you mind if we go back and revisit kind of the how it works, so to speak? So if anybody has any questions, we're going to explain to you how Pivot Bio works.
Pivot Bio has introduced a new microbial product called Pivot Bio Proven that captures nitrogen from the air, converts it to a form corn can use, and then applies this nutrient directly to the corn plant daily. This new product consists of nitrogen-producing microbes that are applied during planting. Once the seeds and microbes are together in the ground, the roots have immediate access to the Pivot Bio Proven microbes. As the seed germinates and the roots reach out into the soil, the microbes adhere to the root structure, capture nitrogen gas from the air, convert it to ammonia, and feed it directly to the corn roots. Pivot Bio Proven microbes are not washed away by weather events, nor do they volatilize into the air, which makes them a reliable nitrogen alternative to maximize yield potential, leading to less dependence on synthetic nitrogen.
I think we all learned a little something by watching this. And I hope some young people are watching, you know, because that's, like I say, that is engaging, letting you know the magic that's happening under that soil and what can be tapped into if you just do a little forward thinking and apply yourself. And I know that's what you have done, your team has done, and Pivot Bio has done. So let's, in our final couple of minutes, your final thoughts on what you would like to share about Pivot Bio and your products and how it benefits farmers.
Well, I'll start by saying, day in and day out, growers are our heroes, and we're here to serve by being able to deliver a better vehicle for getting nitrogen into our crops. It's always fun for me to get to talk about the science and how microbes can do something never before possible. That now we have a way to put nitrogen into our crops in a way that outperforms anything we ever could have imagined. And the result is every grower has one more tool in the toolbox of being a good steward of the land and being able to turn a solid, consistent, and dependable profit every year. So I look ahead and I think that the road ahead for Pivot is we still have plenty of challenges. We can do better. We can learn from the customers we serve. We can build products that supply even more of the nitrogen we need to grow crops. And I think we've got a bright journey ahead where we can be doing our part to make sure that agriculture is here to serve all of us for generations to come.
We certainly appreciate what you're doing and how you're benefiting agriculture. We thank you so much for joining us on Rural America Live. Good night from Rural America's most important network.